Hello, and welcome back to Things I Want My Kids to Know. I'm Ted Bradshaw, and today we're going to talk about love and relationships. This is particularly on my mind for a couple of different reasons, really. The first is that we play a lot of pop songs in my house. So we've been on a few car trips recently, and we've had a playlist going. And I'm very conscious that I am a big Taylor Swift fan, for example. I've got an eclectic taste in music, but a lot of the kind of Venn diagram of our musical taste in the family is pop music. And regardless of the genre you're listening to, but particularly in pop, I think, there's a lot of messages in there about dysfunctional relationships or dysfunctional attitudes towards relationships. So a lot of the songs that we have, for example, give the message that if it's real love, it will drive you crazy. And that might sound like I'm maybe overthinking this a little bit, but partly this comes from the job that I do as well, in that I have, as a therapist, worked with so many people over the years who have found themselves in a really tangled position and feeling very confused. Being in a relationship where they don't feel happy and they don't feel respected, or their partner doesn't treat them in the way that anybody would want to be treated, but they love them. And they'll say, I don't know what to do. I love this person. And anybody can find themselves in this position. And so, as a therapist, when I've kind of worked with people trying to understand, what's happening, how has this kind of come about, what's keeping you there, what's making you feel confused, that kind of thing. Some of it is these messages. For example, that love is supposed to be difficult or challenging, or that even kind of dysfunctional behavior, somebody making you feel angry or upset a lot of the time, or arguing a lot of the time, that is proof of passion, and that is what we're supposed to want. That is what we're supposed to be after. This is proof that this relationship should be existing. But that's not fair, is it? It's not only pop songs that give us this. Of course it's not. It's actually everywhere. So many rom-coms in particular, or sitcoms even, just TV shows or stories that sort of, there'll be a scene where somebody's saying, oh, she just drives me crazy, or he just drives me crazy. And then the best friend will say, like, oh, you like them, don't you? And this idea that, the more somebody annoys you or irritates you or treats you badly, the more that's proof that you must love each other. Or even in the kind of little phrases that come out in everyday life. The classic example I think of, which I think we're better at now, is, a little boy pulls a little girl's pigtails and somebody will say, oh, that just means he likes you. Sorry. Sorry, what are we trying to do here? What message are we trying to give? So he likes you, so he pulls your pigtails. So what? You're therefore supposed to be grateful, or you're supposed to say, like, oh, never mind then. Really, probably the message you want to say is, well, even if he's doing that because he likes you, you don't want anything to do with him if that's how he shows it. It's probably a more healthy. You can hear in my voice, I think, a little bit about how much this gets to me, I suppose. So sometimes we'll be listening to these songs, and I'm kind of sitting there thinking, I want to give a lecture. I want to give a little thing of, like, just so you know, children, this is not how it's supposed to work. So I suppose this is my opportunity. This is my opportunity to say a little bit about it. Where should we start? Let's start with this idea of real love drives you crazy, or that there should be, that fighting and being annoyed with one another is proof of love or proof of passion. If we apply that to any other relationship, so let's say it was a friendship. If you were thinking about your best friends, and some of these, one of your best friends just shouts and screams at you all the time, is just off with you for days for seemingly no reason. One of them is just patient and kind, and it's always relaxed when you see them. Which one's a better friend? Which one loves you more? We wouldn't be going, oh, you should be looking for friends that you just fight with all the time. That'd be great. That's what you want. That's proof that you love each other. What? No, that's not what we'd be after. We wouldn't say that about parents either. We wouldn't say, like, okay, here's a parent who just shouts and screams at their child all the time, and here's a parent who is, again, patient, calm, kind. We wouldn't say that one parent The parent that screams all the time, they definitely love their child more. That's just not how we would measure it, by the volatility of the relationship. That's just not what we would do. So why would we, even for a moment, apply that to romantic relationships? The other thing that I think is difficult about this, if that message persists or is in there, that we can mistake dysfunction for passion. One of the things that can happen in really difficult relationships with a problematic person, and I'm going to use that word specifically, I think, problematic, because people can be problematic for different reasons. People can be problematic without meaning to. Perhaps this is just the way they've learned to communicate, or they've got things in their history or whatever it might be. And people can be problematic because they intend to, because they're just not a nice person and they like controlling and manipulating people. And the key thing is, the reasons behind it fundamentally are hard to know. But when somebody is problematic towards you, as in they are inconsistent, they make you feel on the back foot, they make you feel like you're walking on eggshells, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. What matters is that it's happening. And with a problematic person, sometimes you can have more intense feelings in that relationship than you would with somebody that just treats you consistently well. And what I mean by that is, problematic people can be very charismatic and really shine a light on you. So there's a phrase for this in deeply problematic relationships called love bombing, where somebody will shower you with praise, presence, attention, and it will feel wonderful. It will feel wonderful. It will feel warm. You'll be kind of really almost grateful that this person has kind of chosen you. And then they'll take it away. So they'll be off with you for a couple of days. Or there'll be something that you do or something that you say or wear, and suddenly they're a little bit off with you. Or there's a little critical statement. And that light is taken away. And what it can produce in you is a feeling of longing. I just want that back. I want that feeling back. You just had this wonderful feeling that I had bathing in this light of your attention has just been taken away, and I long for it back. But you're not talking to me. And that creates even more longing. And then when they eventually concede and sort of show you attention again, this overwhelming relief. So even that, just as an example, if we are saying about relationships that what you should be looking for is an intensity of feeling, that's how you know whether you should be with somebody, I'd say that's potentially misleading, because in a dysfunctional relationship, you might feel even more intense feelings than you would in a really, I'm going to use the word functional relationship, where somebody just treats you with care, compassion, and kindness. Even as I describe that, you can maybe hear or notice that, describing a relationship as caring and kind could, under certain circumstances, sound less exciting than a relationship that's got passion in it. But again, what do we mean by passion? I don't think we should mean fighting. You can feel really passionate about somebody who treats you with respect and makes you feel good about yourself all the time. Absolutely you can. Sometimes the kind of litmus test that I'll ask people when they're not sure about a relationship, when they'll say, I really love this person, but what they're describing is somebody treating them badly. One question I'll ask is, what is it that you love about this person? Or what is it that you admire about them? And sometimes it's then, when they don't really have an answer, that they're able to say, I don't know. I just feel love towards them. Actually, what we, I think, want to ask ourselves in relationships is not so much only what's the intensity of my feeling about this person, but what are these feelings and what are they about? So not only how do I feel towards this person, but what do I admire about them? What do I like about them? How do they make me feel? And hopefully some of the things you'd be able to say is, I admire their, passion, their creativity, their kindness, their warmth, whatever it might be. But there should be answers there. There should be things that you like about them. not only an intense feeling towards them. Yeah, and the idea that passion is shown by volatility and dysfunction also maybe suggests that a lack of volatility is a lack of passion. And I just don't think that's true. I just don't think that's true at all. And I don't think it's helpful. So one of the things I suppose I'd want my kids to know about this is when they get old enough to start thinking about this, is that the way that you feel towards somebody, just, in your body, isn't the only indication of whether a relationship is a good idea or whether it's going to be helpful for you. It's also, more importantly, not just love as a feeling, but loving behaviour. What loving behaviour do you see from this person? How do they treat you? And for me, loving behaviour is the same in all relationships. Parental relationships, romantic relationships, is respect. I admire and respect you is kindness. So I will give you the benefit of the doubt with certain things. I will say or do nice things for and around you. And that doesn't have to mean flowers. That's the key thing that we'll see, in terms of like romance. Sometimes it does, sometimes that is what that means. But sometimes it just means consideration. Like I've gone out of my way to do something so that it takes it off your plate for a while, or whatever it might be. Care. So, if you're ill, do they show you care? Consideration. Those things. One of the things I want my kids to think about or know about in friendships is it's the same. One of the things I often think about is there are certain people, and they tend to be few, around whom you feel completely at ease. As in, it's not hard work. It's we can be at ease around one another. I don't have to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I don't have to think carefully about what I'm saying. I don't have to sort of avoid certain subjects, maybe. Now, don't get me wrong, in functional relationships where we love one another and show each other respect, there will be moments and there will be times where that's not the case, where we will disagree about stuff and we'll annoy each other. I leave cupboards open all the time. I don't know how my wife tolerates it. But fundamentally, it's not the arguing, it's not the moments of arguing that are the proof of this relationship being good. It's the fact that there's, for the majority of the time, care and kindness and peace. And that I want my children to ask themselves in a relationship is, how does this person make me feel about myself? Sometimes in a dysfunctional relationship, the difficulty with that question is that sometimes they make me feel wonderful about myself, but sometimes they make me feel awful. So it's not only about how do I feel in this situation, it's consistency as well. Consistency. I think sometimes we get lost in the question of whether the relationship is right, but it isn't an easy question to answer. Perhaps a more important question is, how do I want my life to be? And if I want to feel at ease and at peace, and I want to have some joy in my life, and I want to have moments of relaxation, and I want to feel safe, is that how this relationship makes me feel? And if it doesn't, whether you feel love for this person or not, maybe it's not the right thing as it is. Then we start coming across complicated stuff as well around, but sometimes there's dysfunction in a relationship which might be fixable. So, as an example, my wife and I, we met when I was 17. Well, we're both 17. And I'm not the same person today as I was then. At 17, I hadn't learned any of this stuff. So, the arguments or disagreements we would have had together at 17 are different to how we'd handled them now. And that's come through learning. That's come through learning each other, and it's come from learning how to express yourself and how to overcome or how to find a middle ground somewhere between the two of you sometimes. So things can change, things can get better. So how long are you supposed to give it? And again, I think a lot of stories, again, I'm very attuned to this because of the work that I do, but so many stories that we have and films that we have are kind of about usually a bloke being really horrible and then a woman being strong enough, kind enough, pretty enough, funny enough, and intelligent enough to basically calm him down and make him not so horrible anymore. Beauty and the Beast being the classic example. And you can again argue, well, that's just a fairy tale. Well, it is, but it's also a fairy tale that is repeated in stories that look more real, films that look more real, books that look more real. And it's an unfair expectation. And if that's not kind of out on the table, maybe we could be misled into thinking that that's what we're supposed to do in a relationship. That actually, if somebody's horrible, what you're supposed to do is just be patient and kind enough, and they will change. Which kind of means if they're not changing, that's your fault because you've not been patient and kind enough, right? Which is just not fair and deeply unhelpful. That's also related to the message that sometimes in stories around love conquers all, which I think is a nice message, that, you know, love is stronger than hate. And I think in general that's a really lovely thing to say. But again, not love as a feeling, but loving behaviour. Loving behaviour towards somebody else. You know, one of the reasons I think I am in, I don't know, a better place than I was and feel kind of at ease in myself is because I have had the experience of being accepted and loved by another person. And that would be a good example of what impact loving behaviour can have. But that doesn't mean that if you just throw enough loving behaviour and patience and kindness and tolerance at somebody, that is a guaranteed outcome that things will change. If somebody doesn't treat you well, you know, whether they've got good reason, whether they've got good reason to not be totally in charge of themselves all the time or not, you are worth protecting as well. And the only person that can really change things is the person themselves. So you could show somebody all the love, all the patience, all the kindness, and they still might not change the way that they are, or the attitude that they have, or the way that they treat you. And that isn't a failing in you. You might not feel comfortable saying it's a failing in them. Maybe you can see why they've got all the difficulties going on. But the key thing is, I suppose, it isn't wrong for you to want to feel safe and at ease. It isn't wrong for you to want to take a step away from somebody if what they do is hurting you. You can wish somebody well from a distance. You don't have to stand next to them and take it. Where do we want to kind of summarise some of this? I feel like a rant would be a strong word. I feel like I've been off saying the things that I hold in my chest, I suppose. And if I was going to summarise some of what I'd want to say to my kids, or what I'd want them to know about relationships as they grow, because the other thing that's difficult is sometimes it starts nice. Usually relationships start really nice. And it's kind of only slowly and gradually over time. There's a phrase, frog boiling in a pot. So you might get into a relationship with somebody and initially feel really like they're being really kind and considerate and caring towards you. And it's only like later that things start to feel a little bit uneasy or on edge. And that can be confusing too, because you're like, well, which is real? Was it that, or is it this that's happening now? And the key things I suppose I'd want my kids to know is when you're looking at a relationship that you're in, the intensity of feeling isn't a fair measure of whether this is a helpful thing for you. It's an important factor, but more important questions are, do I feel respected? Do I feel safe? And do I feel good about myself in this relationship? Do I feel that this person is giving me care and attention that I deserve? That is a more important question. And if the answer is no, then there are things that can be done about that. Either that might be trying to work on the relationship somehow. There's talking to them about it, there's trying to address it. But fundamentally, if it doesn't change and they don't treat you with kindness, care and respect, that's kind of all you need to know. And it is okay for you to not want that, even if your body screams for them in some way. That's okay. The final thing I'd want to say is that sometimes as well, another message that's out there, I suppose, about love is that it is a good thing to have somebody say to you, or for you to say to them, that you cannot possibly live without them. And I think the sentiment in there around, you mean so much to me that I'd find it really hard if you weren't around, is present in functional relationships. I'd be devastated if my wife wasn't here. I don't know what I'd do. But that's because she offers so much. What it isn't is because I can't bear the idea of being on my own. And sometimes I think that can be confusing too. So when you find yourself, or if you find yourself in a position where it's not working, what's happening, but you can't bear the idea of leaving, asking yourself, or is this because this person's presence gives me so much and I feel so much better when they're around? Or is it more that I really, really don't like the idea of being on my own? And I'd rather, frankly, be with anybody than be on my own. I think, it sounds unromantic, I think, but I think it is romantic. That rather than I can't live without you, I think a more romantic thing to hear is I could live without you if I wanted to. I would be okay. I could cope on my own. But I'm so glad I've got you. I'm so glad I've got you. And every day I choose you. I'm not here because I can't bear the thought of being on my own and you'll do. I'm here because I want to be. Because I admire you and I want to spend time with you. For me, that's more romantic, actually. There we go. Those are some of the things I would say. I'm glad I've got those off my chest. Thank you for listening. There's more coming. Next up, we're going to do some stuff on self-esteem. And then beyond that, we're going to do some stuff about performance anxiety, particularly around exams. And that one is going to be a bonus episode for paid subscribers. All the information about how to join up to that will be in the show notes. But you can find me on Substack, CBT TED, and that's where you would sign up for that. Thanks very much.